Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Is it loud enough? Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. Bear with us. This is our first meeting in the newly finished council chambers. Tonight's meeting of the committee adjustment, welcome. This is a meeting to consider applications for minor variance and consent held under the authority of the Planning Act of Ontario. Please keep in mind the intent of the process is to review the proposal that is before us, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between the town, individuals, or organizations. If a request for a deferral is made and the committee grants such a request, the committee, after consultation with the Secretary-Treasurer, will set a new hearing date. No further notice will be provided unless there are changes to the application. In order to conduct an efficient and effective hearing, we have adopted the following process. The owner or authorized agent will be given the opportunity, if so desired, to briefly explain to us the basis of their application and answer any questions that may arise out of the hearing. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for this presentation. You need to state your full name and address for the record. Any materials submitted to the committee for viewing will remain in the property of this committee. Any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All persons attending the hearing who wish to support or oppose the application must also state their name and address for the record. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for their presentation. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chairperson of the committee. Any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will also be at the discretion of the committee. If there are several speakers sharing the same point of view, we ask that a spokesperson represent the group's opinion. We want to hear the views of everyone in attendance. However, covering the same points will not advance your case. The owner or agent will then be provided a further 5 minutes to respond to the comments made by any interested parties, answer any questions from the committee members. If the owner or agent has any concerns found in staff reports, particularly with any proposed conditions, this will be the opportunity for them to advise us. The matter will then be taken into committee for a decision, and that will mark the end of all discussions. Once the committee makes an oral decision, any person desiring a copy must file the Secretary-Treasurer at this meeting a written request for notice of the decision. A green sheet is provided for this purpose in the back of the room. Please note that you must make a written request in order to be included on the list that is used by the local planning appeal tribunal for giving of any subsequent notice of any appeal. Written notices of the committee's decision will be mailed no later than 10 days for minor variance applications and 15 days for consent applications to the applicant, owner, agent, and any other person who has filed a written request for such a notice. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, you may appeal this to the local planning appeal tribunal, and the latest date to appeal the decision will be noted on the decision. If no appeal is received within the prescribed time frame, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding. The Secretary-Treasurer will then notify the applicant through written correspondence. People attending this committee meeting are to be courteous and respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and other people in attendance tonight. Tonight's meeting will be video recorded and available for future viewing on the town's YouTube channel. We ask that you maintain your cellular phones on silent, if not switched off, during the meeting, as they tend to interfere with the audio system. Thank you. We have no regrets this evening. Declaration of pecuniary interest. Do I have any? I see none. Thank you. At this time, I will take deferral or withdrawal of application requests. Is there anyone here who would like to defer an application or request a withdrawal? I see none. Thank you. We have no consent applications. We'll start with our first item on our agenda tonight is CAV 035 of 2019 at 2174 Vineland Crescent.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the committee, Secretary, city staff, and the audience. My name is Raid Rawi from Professional Floor Plans, 5147 Preservation Circle, Mississauga, Ontario, L5M74. I'm the engineer and agent on for the owners.
Good evening, Mr. Rawi. If you just give me a moment to canvass the room. Who is here in attendance for CAV 035 of 2019 at 2174 Vineland Crescent? Are you in opposition or in support? Support. Very well. Do you care to speak to the committee, or are you the applicants? You are the applicants. Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone here else who's in attendance for this matter? I see none. Okay. Mr. Rawi, this is the proposed new construction of a rear deck.
Yes.
And we've all done our site visits. Is there anything further that you'd like to add to the application?
No, I'm good, and I read the staff report, and I'm in agreement with that.
Very well. Members, do you have any questions of Mr. Rawi at this time? Any items of clarification? I see none. Mr. Rawi, if you're prepared for us to take this matter into committee, we can do so now.
Yes, please.
Very well. Who would like to move a motion? Mr. Flemington, thank you.
Madam Chair, having conducted my site visit and having reviewed the applicant's written submission, as well as the town's written staff report, noting that it is in support of, also having taken into account that there are no letters in opposition, I am willing to move a motion that supports the application as applied for, finding that it meets the intent of the Planning Act bylaws. In addition, I'd like to move that with the conditions that the rear deck be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated February 28, 2019, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is CAV 036 of 2019 at 164 Douglas Avenue.
My name is Michael Bateman. I'm representing the owner of the property.
Good evening. Would you kindly just speak more into the mic because
Sure.
we have to get it on the record? And maybe turn the volume up if possible?
I don't know how to do
Okay,
that.
thank you.
It's Michael Bateman. I'm,
Michael Bateman.
representing
Good
him.
evening, Mr. Bateman. If you'd give me a second to canvass the room. Who is here for CAV 036 of 2019 at 164 Douglas Avenue? Okay. You are in opposition or in support? Opposition. Very well. Is everyone going to address the committee, or do you have a elected member who's going to speak?
I'm not connected with these people, so.
You will be addressing the committee. Anyone else who is not connected as a group that is going to address the committee? Are you all addressing the committee? That's my question. No.
That's correct.
Okay, very well. Mr. Bateman, you'll take us through your presentation.
I would need a overhead projector or
I
something
believe
else.
there is one, yes. Mind the fact that we are in this room for the first day today, but we will take you through it. I think it's right there, and it should project to the above screen and on our screens.
Okay. I see. I got it. Okay.
A little bit of new technology.
Okay. Right. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so we're proposing a very small addition to this existing building, which was built more than 100 years ago.
Yeah, this is a rear addition, but
Rear
this
addition,
is a
yes.
heritage lot. Go ahead, sir.
Very small. It's only less than 14 square meters per floor. We're actually taking it back away from one of the property lines, so it's actually moving away about 2 feet from the property line to open up this, to open up more light into the building, and also to allow the neighbor to have more light. The existing building was designed a very long time ago, and the whole building was designed under very different conditions and very different requirements from today. What is right now located in the back bumper, which we're expanding, is a washroom on one floor and also another washroom on the second floor. So really, you can see the whole house is very shallow, and the dining room is basically in the middle of a corridor. The living room is just a little tiny area in front of the foyer, and the kitchen is squeezed into a corner and doesn't have any light. So really, with this condition, we are trying to do our best to at the same time preserve the quality of this house, and we know that the City of Oakville is concerned with front facade and they asked us not to change anything at the front or at the sides of the building. So the only option really we have to change this design is to expand into the back. The reason that the numbers come out quite high is because there is a finished attic, but the finished attic right now is very, very unusable. It's very small, and this is what is skewing the numbers quite a lot. A lot of people said that it's a 3-story building, but in fact, it's actually a very, very normal 2-story building with a finished attic. So, well, this is a picture of the existing attic. As you can see, most of the attic cannot be really used for standing room, so it cannot really be used for a bedroom or any kind of space. So but in fact, we had to add that floor area to our gross floor area, and that's why the numbers kind of came out high. The owner actually was willing to, to change that and to remove finished attic, but at the time we didn't expect that there would be so much opposition. As I said, the building itself is really a 2-story building with a attic space. There was some notices in the objections letters that I saw that stated that this building is a 3-story building. I find it completely ridiculous. This building just has a finished attic with a couple of small dormer windows. So it's not really something gigantic or something that's unusual to the neighborhood. What are we proposing? We're proposing to use the addition for a kitchen on the ground floor. And we're proposing a small bedroom on the second floor, a master bedroom, which is only 12 by 17, which is really a small dimension. That's not really a great dimension for a master bedroom. We really squeezed this space so that we could get, so we don't have really to go very far and to expand this home into a backyard. So really we really thought it out and didn't really add a lot to this building. As I said, the building also steps away from the corner of the existing bump out, so we're actually moving back 2 feet, and we're just proposing a small bedroom. There's nothing really extraordinary about this addition. There was some concern that this what we're proposing is actually exceeding the existing conditions, and I looked at the aerial photo of the whole area, and it looks like the building that we have is actually a lot smaller than any other building in that corner. And you can notice it by eye. I did actually some calculations of one of the lots, which is next door, and I came up with very, very big numbers. This lot is next door to the one we're proposing. This is the building that we're working on, and it actually has a lot coverage, which is 38%, and it has a relationship of the floor area to the lot at 67.8, which is also much higher. So it's 20% higher than what we're proposing with our addition, and it's almost more than 10% higher than what we're proposing with our floor area. So this is one of the major issues that were brought up. I also found a lot of other decisions that were very similar to the one that we're proposing, but I'll get to that in a second. There was also a lot of questions about sunlight access to the neighbor's yard, and there was a lot of 3 letters written about that. So I did a little study showing how in the very, very coldest months, this is the impact that the small addition at the back is going to have. The pink is actually representing the addition, and how much impact it's going to have on the neighbor's yard. As you can see, in the summer months, this is an aerial photo taken in the summer, the addition doesn't even reach even close to the house, so there's absolutely no impact. I took some photos just today showing that the backyard is actually receiving, this is a neighbor's backyard, this person who was complaining a lot about not receiving enough light. As you can see, there's plenty of light coming into the building. In the morning, it's possible that there will be some blockage, but it's existing blockage. It's not something that we're proposing again. And another thing I noticed about the neighbor's yard is that they're actually talking about reducing light, but in fact, they have a big gazebo standing in the middle of the yard, which is actually reducing sun access to the windows that they have. And this is the same building that I was talking about, the one that is actually far exceeding what we're proposing at 38 lot coverage. 38% lot coverage. It's a 2-story building. The owner seems to believe that this is just a bungalow, but clearly this is a 2-story building. There's no way that this is a bungalow. So both floors have to be counted for the GFA. I have 4 different committee, there's also additional support letter. I had 3 support letters, but I brought another one, so it's going to be a 3rd one, so I can submit that. There are 3 different decisions that I found. Should I go through all of them, or is it okay if I just hand you on? One of them is very big. This is for 199 Allen, and the proposed approved addition had a 34.5% lot coverage. We're asking for 29. And then I found 3 other decisions that were very close to what we're proposing. I can understand that some people are not happy with the fact that we're going over what would be allowable in some previous decisions. But this is an old house. This is not a house that's built for today's use. It was built a long time ago, and we really don't have any options. As I said, the whole house is 2-story already. We cannot really use anything. We cannot really do anything to a house that is visible from the street. So we don't really have a lot of options. When you're building something new, yes, I understand that you should be limiting the maximum permitted lot coverage, because these buildings are new and they can actually design it in a way that would be, they can actually work with the front of a house and the back of a house to actually make it work, and so that there is a connection. The existing house, as I said, absolutely disconnected from the backyard. Basically, it's almost a blank wall to the back. What we have is few windows, very small windows, doors, 1 small window. The rest of this facade is basically blank. It's basically a solid brick wall at the back. There's no connection to the yard at all. It was built very long time ago and never altered, but obviously built for a very different time and not the use that people want from the house today. And as I said, I don't think the owner is asking for anything extraordinary. It's just a simple 1-bedroom on the 2nd floor and the kitchen that would actually have some light access. And as I said, I don't really feel this addition is going to have any impact whatsoever on the neighborhood or on the neighbor. And as I said, we already went. I spoke to the person who looked at it in the Historic Society. They were fine with the addition. They actually said they had absolutely no problem. The planner had no problem with it, but there seemed to be a lot of opposition. I don't really see why, but I'll let them.
Well, we'll give the members of the neighborhood an opportunity to speak, but before you leave, are there any questions of Mr. Bateman at this time? Any items of clarification? Okay, so I'll invite you to sit down and then we'll hear what the neighbors have to say.
Should I submit the 4 similar decisions by committee, or should I go over them? Or?
It's up to you.
Well, as I said, the biggest one, 3 of them are actually very similar to what we're proposing, to around 29. Lot coverage, and one of them is 34.5.
While we take these things into consideration, mostly we take each application as it stands on its own merit. Mm-hmm. It's not really what's been granted out there.
Yeah.
You really have to look at the merits of the application. And you've done a great job explaining what you need and why and where the calculations have come from. I'll just take a moment to hear the rest of the neighborhood, and then we'll come back to that. Thank you. So who would like to address the committee first? Okay. Mr. Nelson, are you representing the group?
I'm not representing the group, Madam Chair. David Nelson, planning consultant, 382 Bartos Road, Oakville, Ontario. I'm here representing Renee Carlson, who is the owner of the property at 168. She's also going to speak on her own behalf. I want to just go over some very broad issues, some clarification. I'm going to refer you first to the provincial policy statement, and particular section 2.6, which deals with cultural heritage and archaeology. Looking at 2.6.3, I read that as a prescriptive requirement, not an optional requirement. So the planning authorities shall not permit development and site alteration on adjacent lands to protected heritage property. The protected heritage property in this instance is a heritage conservation district, which runs down the rear lot line between Allen Street and Douglas. Now, if you look at that statement, it does have some terminology in italics, and So I dug in a little deeper on that to determine exactly what the provincial policy statement was looking towards. And it speaks to a term here known as contiguous, and by definition, contiguous means touching or abutting. But the key in that line D is otherwise defined in the municipal official plan. So if we look to the Town of Oakville official plan, section 5.3.4, and we look at number 2, B, within, adjacent to, or in the immediate vicinity of the boundaries of a heritage conservation district. I think that this property is within the immediate vicinity, and I'm not sure that the staff report deals with the issue of cultural heritage and archaeology, and I just want some clarification on that. So that's my one point. Secondly is an issue with respect to compliance with bylaw. And I've looked at the current bylaw 2014-14 fairly carefully and can't find any wording in there that gives us any relief with respect to any issues that may be non-complying. In other instances, when I've appeared before this committee, I have been advised that I needed to deal with all non-complying issues. In this particular case, we have a non-complying side yard, we have non-complying height, and the possibility of space above the second story, which are not permitted by the current bylaw. So I'm looking for some clarification on that. The interpretation is some staff wording here. It does say the requirements of this bylaw must be met before a building permit is issued for erection, addition to, or alteration of any building or structure. So again, looking for clarification on that issue. Finally, Madam Chair, with respect to the staff report, and it may not be a big issue, but it's just a clarification here. On page 3, the yellow highlighted, the statement there is that the property at 168 Douglas Avenue was contained a legal non-conforming commercial use. I'll take you back in history to bylaw 1453, the original Town of Oakville zoning bylaw, which was passed in 1957. The property at 168 Douglas was constructed in 1959, so it was subject to that bylaw. That bylaw specifically permits the office of a physician within his residential property, provided he had 2 parking spaces on the site. So that property was in fact legal and conforming when it was constructed. That terminology carried forward into bylaw 1965-136 and still finds itself embedded in bylaw 1984-63. It is now missing from bylaw 2014-14. So I just wanted to present that clarification so the committee is aware of the fact that that property at 168 is legal and conforming, or was at the time the dentist's office was in that building. There's also some question with respect to the lot coverage on that property. There are substantial eave overhangs on that, and I did a quick calculation based on the aerial photography that's available on the town's website. And I'm coming out at less than the 45% that's shown there. My client has indicated that based on her calculation, her lot coverage is actually 32%. On that basis, Madam Chair, I'm suggesting that you might want to defer the application until some of these questions are answered.
Are there any questions of Mr. Nelson at this time? Mr. Talowski, go ahead.
Mr. Nelson, is your submission to the committee that you cannot seek a variance because of the PPS in or adjacent to a heritage district?
I'm not saying that you can't, Madam Chair. I'm suggesting that it needs to be looked at, and I don't see anything in the staff report to indicate that that has been reviewed.
And the excerpt from the official plan that you put up, it says council may ask for it.
Yes.
It's not prescriptive.
That is not prescriptive, but I would suggest that it doesn't meet the intent of the provincial policy statement. So again, it's an issue of clarification, Madam Chair.
Well, we're going to get town staff to comment on the items that you've requested. I'm sure Mr. Hassan has something to say about all those items.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, in relation to the heritage comments, I did speak with heritage planning staff, and the first paragraph of the planning staff report notes that planning services consulted with heritage planning and they have no heritage concerns with the proposal. In relation to the zoning concerns, the addition itself in relation to a building permit hasn't gone through a full review. Zoning staff would have commented on the application as submitted, and in relation to the addition, it was required to be seeking relief for lot coverage in a residential floor area. And in relation to the adjacent property and the 45.02% of lot coverage that was provided by our GIS data, which I used to complete the average calculation for lot coverage in the area.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Nelson, you also raised the issue of, and I'll grant you that sometimes staff seek to legalize noncompliance, sometimes in a situation like this, they don't, but whether the variance in front of us has 2 variances plus 2 more to legalize, is that relevant to your client's view of this application?
I believe it is relevant, yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, so how so? If the applicant seeking the addition and the legalization of the existing legal noncompliance, what is the impact to the 4 tests that we have to consider?
Well, I would express the point of view that a property is overbuilt on the basis of the non-conforming aspects of it, the very tight side yard and the extra floor area on the upper floor.
Mr. Nelson, the applicant put up a drawing which showed an aerial view, which to my eye clearly showed that the applicant's house has got the least coverage of all the adjacent houses. And from my experience on the committee, the one thing that's characteristic of this neighborhood is that pretty much every single house in this neighborhood does not comply with the existing bylaws. So is it your submission to us that the property, the house on the property is overbuilt for the property, or it's overbuilt in relation to the current bylaw?
In relation to the property, Madam Chair.
Are there any further questions of Mr. Nelson at this time? I see none. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Thank you for your submission. Go ahead, sir. Name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Rob Hawkins, and I live at 180 Douglas Avenue, within 60 meters of this property.
180 Douglas?
Right. I received notification.
Just trying to find you on our map. Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Second house north of Sumner.
Yes. We don't have a blow up big enough, I guess.
Okay.
It's fine. Go ahead.
I'm speaking against this application because as an area resident, I've watched the piecemeal transformation of this older neighborhood as developers. I'm down to 422 already, is that correct?
No, you just started speaking. We'll set it at 5. Don't worry about it.
Okay. As developers, builders, and yes, some homeowners constantly push against the boundaries represented by the town's zoning bylaws. I am aware of the intensification policies of the province and town, but I consider there are more effective ways to achieve that on a bigger scale than allowing individuals to add more space to small lots in existing older neighbourhoods, thereby obtaining tax-free windfall gains. I've reviewed the 4 criteria that this committee is required to consider in the context of what constitutes a minor variance. I don't believe that an application that requires these degrees of changes to the bylaw can be considered to, quote, maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, but to avoid taking up too much time, the criteria I am focusing on is the variance application minor? The dictionary defines minor as having little importance or significance and inferior in importance, size or degree, comparatively unimportant. In this application, we have a request to increase the maximum lot coverage from the 19% in the bylaw to 29.87%. That's a 57.2% increase in an RL3 zone, specifically described in the zoning bylaw as low-density residential. The proposal also requests an increase in the maximum residential floor area ratio from the bylaw 43% to 61%, an increase of 41.8%. I suggest that increases ranging from 41.8 to 57.2 cannot be regarded as having little importance or significance, or as being inferior in importance, size, or degree. They are definitely not minor in nature. I'm also alarmed that apparently planning services staff are unwilling to mount a stronger defence of the zoning bylaws. In my view, permitting exceptions of this magnitude undermines the integrity of the bylaw. A closer inspection of this proposal reveals that the reason for it is that the applicant has a lot with a depth of 28.14 metres in an area where lots are typically 43.25 metres of depth. It would appear that in the late 1940s, the owner or owners of 164 and 168 Douglas Avenue sold off the back 15 metres of their lots to create the lot on which 370 Sumner was subsequently built. This resulted in 164 Douglas having a residential floor area ratio of 53% and a lot coverage of 26.19%. Planning services staff appear to be judging what is a minor variance based upon the property's existing ratios, which are way above the zoning bylaw ratios because of the earlier sale of part of the lot. I believe this approach is erroneous. Staff also appear to be saying, ignore the zoning bylaw and build out as much as you like at the rear of your property, which I also think is wrong. This is the second example I've seen in this area of a person buying an older property on an undersized lot and then seeking coverage on floor area ratios way above those prescribed in the zoning bylaw. In 2016, the committee allowed the purchaser of 199 Allen Street large increases in these ratios, thereby handing a large value bonus to that owner. I would like to pose the following question. Is it the function of the Committee of Adjustment to hand out valuable free density bonuses to aggressive developers and owners who have acquired smaller, less expensive lots? I think that would be a perversion of this committee's function and purpose. One of the written objections received is from Mr. Milt Flynn, who last year purchased 179 Douglas and sought a minor variance of 25.3% coverage. As his letter states, staff objected and he had to settle for 23.69%. Comparing his experiences with staff's approval of the subject application, I believe he has every right to feel aggrieved. It would seem that applications are not being dealt with on a consistent basis. In fact, a double standard seems to exist, and I wonder why. With regard to the letter drafted by the applicant in support of the subject application and signed by 2 other nearby property owners, the wording is misleading. At no time has this property been derelict. Yes, it was a little shabby and under-maintained, but it was built almost 100 years ago and was bound to stand out among newer houses. If it had been derelict, the town's building standard staff would have become involved. The original owner-occupier sold and moved out in May of last year, so the property has not been vacant for an extensive time. The first purchaser subsequently decided not to proceed with its plans for the property and resold it to the current owner late last year. One other minor point, the architect's drawing submitted with the application that I found online purports to show the east elevation, which is in fact showing the west elevation, and what purports to be the west elevation is in fact the east elevation. In conclusion, I believe that if this application is allowed to proceed, it will make a mockery of the zoning bylaws, be yet another example of inconsistent application of the minor variance concept, and provide an undeserved and unjust windfall profit to the applicant. I therefore urge the committee to reject this application, for to do otherwise will undermine the integrity of these bylaws and lower respect for the Committee of Adjustment process. If you would like written my remarks in writing, I have 4 or 5 copies here. I'm sorry?
You did not submit them ahead of time because we have so many letters of application. Okay. I have a question for you. Now, I understand your objection with respect to the technical nature of these variances in terms of numbers, but you haven't spoken at all in terms of impact to you as a resident. After all, this is a heritage home that is preserved, its facade and the entire building is going to be preserved as it is. It's a minor addition to the rear yard. So it's really not going to be seen except by the immediate neighbors, which I'm sure plenty of other people are going to speak to. But for your perspective, what is the impact that you seek to let the committee know as a resident?
My major concern, Madam Chairman, is the way these people buy these smaller lots and then expect some massive increase to build what would normally be built on a much larger yacht, because I consider that getting a tax-free windfall gain from this committee, and I don't think that's the function of the committee. You're absolutely right. It will not affect me directly. Quite bluntly, from my personal point of view, I don't care if that property's torn down. I don't think it has heritage value at all, but that's just my opinion.
I thank you for your submission. Are there any questions of Mr. Hawkins at this time? I see none. Okay, thank you, sir. Who is next in line? Come on down, ma'am.
Good evening, Your Honor.
Good evening.
My name is Danielle Carlson. I'm the owner of 168 Douglas Avenue, Oakville, Ontario. I would like to...
so you're the same owner as the person that Mr.
Opposing.
Nelson?
I'm opposing.
I understand that. But Mr. Nelson represented you in his...
Yes.
And you're still speaking to...
Yes, I am.
Okay, do you have anything to say that's further to what Mr.
Yes.
Nelson has said?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Yes,
go
I
ahead.
do. I would like to read introduction and conclusion to my speech, but in the meantime, I have 50 pages of documentation, which I would like to present quickly. I'll read the introduction and conclusion quickly, and then I would like to present my documentation. Perhaps we could have, if somebody could possibly help me with, I don't know how to, oh.
It's right in front of you, ma'am. Just if you look at your screen and where you're placing the documents right now, where it says help desk, we're seeing everything very clearly. You'll be able to see it there as well.
I'll quickly read the 168. I'm just referring to the notes by the staff, which speak of my house as in a derogative manner. I wanted to say that 168 Douglas Avenue was built by Dr. Holborn in 1957 as his family home. The raised bungalow was built in Frank Lloyd Wright's tradition with clean long lines, large horizontal windows, open concept space, and low-pitched roof. Extensive use of natural stone, enormous fireplace, and mahogany ceilings completed typical Frank Lloyd Wright interior design. Dr. Holborn built his dental offices in the basement of the home. The 160 Douglas entrance led to his dental practice, and 374 Sumner Avenue entrance was the entrance to the beautiful family home. All the principal rooms of the home face the backyard and enjoy limited southeast sunshine. I wanted to, on this slide, you can see this is the view from my great room, as Frank Lloyd Wright liked open space, big rooms. So this is at 10 o'clock, and the line shows the addition. So the sunshine, which is between, I received the first sunshine light at about 9:30, and then I only have, at this time, sunshine till about 11 o'clock. And this is in the winter time, that's the only sunshine that is here, and it's only for about 2 hours. So that's the only sunshine. I have lots of windows in the house, but they all face north. And the only sunshine reaching those windows is in the summer. In the winter, this is the only light. I also wanted to show you the orientation. It's a very unique situation, and I would like to beg of Your Honor not to look at other submissions, because this is very, very unique, and this affects family life forever. This is not a small addition. This is, for me, it's a matter of death and life. Because maybe I'll, so this is my bungalow, and it is a bungalow. I have documentation and proof of this from MPAC and building permit. This house is a raised bungalow. Doors that were shown to my house, they lead to the basement. From the ground level, they lead to the basement, they lead down. There is no sub-basement. There are only two levels, the below level, below ground level, and then the main floor where I live. So this is my house. This is the house at 164 Douglas Avenue.
Can you push your paper in a little bit? Because, yeah, there we go. Can you see it on your screen?
This is the house at 370 Sumner Avenue, which is not part of this application. However, this, as my predecessor said, those are 3 smaller lots. And my backyard is very, very small. It's only 18 feet deep. And that's the main entrance to my house. Above here, there is a great room which contains everything. It's my kitchen, dining room, my office, everything. My only light is this way. I only have, at this time, which is March, I only have 2.5 hours of light. Now, this addition would reduce it by half. I have documentation drawn by architect with architect's stamp to this effect, and this will be my next drawing.
Just to let you know that you're at 1.5 minutes left.
I have more documentation. This is.
But then I have to be fair to everybody else. And as a person, you've already exhausted 10 minutes because you gave your representative your initial 5 minutes. So I'm actually being very courteous to you. So go ahead and finish your last thoughts, ma'am.
I have a lot of thoughts. This is a document from the architect, and this is about sunshine, which will be completely blocked. In wintertime, there will be zero sunshine reaching my backyard. Zero, absolutely zero sunshine. And as to pergola, this pergola is built so that to block my house from the house at 164 Douglas, because this house towers. It's double the height of my house. It towers above my house. In order to use the backyard, I have to have the vine grape there in order to sit there and not be overlooked directly. The house at 164 Douglas is only located on the 90 centimeters, which is 3 feet from my property line, and my backyard being such a small, small wedge. This is where we sit, just 1 meter from the house. That's
Other than the sunlight into your property.
It's privacy. It's privacy. Like every word that I say, if you can see,
But this is
where I
condition right now.
Pardon?
This is an existing condition right now in terms of your
This
towering,
is existing,
the
but
height.
if an addition is built with windows, there are also windows proposed looking directly into my kitchen, directly into my bathroom, directly into my living room, directly into my office, directly, and my child's bedroom, and my tenant's living room, bathroom, and dining room, directly within just 20 feet. And some of the windows, my child's bedroom, the window proposed will be about 6 feet from my child's bedroom.
Okay. Anything further that you'd like to say?
I have a
Because
petition
you only have
signed
one
by-
more minute.
I have a petition signed by 50 people.
Okay, you can submit that to Secretary Treasurer and we'll take a look at it.
Yes, I will. We have, including all the properties directly.
Believe me, we're not
around
at a
me.
loss for knowing that there is opposition to this application. I can tell by just the amount of people that are
And
here.
that's only 50
But
people
I'd like to
because-
give everyone else the opportunity to speak.
I wanted to show a sun study which was done by an architect. This is my house. This is 164 Douglas. This is the shade. My entire house is in the shade at 9 o'clock in the morning, and then the sun will be obstructed by the next house, 370 Sumner, to which the staff has, and this is at 12 noon. So this is my child's bedroom. There'll be zero sunshine with an addition. That's the addition, ever. The sunshine will never be in my child's bedroom. Never. Then in the bathroom. This part of the backyard will never receive one ray of sunshine. There will be rats, there will be moths, there will be mosquitoes. There will be more mosquitoes. This will be the epicenter of mosquitoes and West Nile virus because there is melting snow, there is moisture, there is rain, and this is where it will be coming from.
Okay. Are there any questions of
I just wanted
neighbor
to show you
at this time?
the 3D drawing of those three.
You can just submit them to the Secretary Treasurer and we will circulate them and we will take a look at them. I cannot have you take any more time of the committee's time. We've already exhausted 12 minutes, but we understand your submission. It's light and shading and intrusive into your privacy.
And also
Believe me,
my
we've
view
heard you, and
is
we
going to be a
will
prison
take
wall.
all of this into
12 feet
consideration.
from my house where I spend 12 hours per day.
I understand
and
that, and we
be
do
retiring.
understand
and I'm
your
planning
point
to
of
live
view.
there all my life. I bought this house. I traveled the earth to find this house, to find this town, to find Oakville, to find this house. I plan to live there another 50 years, but I will have a prison wall in front of me.
And I appreciate your submission, and so does the committee, and we've heard you, ma'am.
And
This is why we have this opportunity, is for everyone to speak and for us to hear how this application impacts the neighbors. So we do not take that lightly, and we appreciate your time and your submission.
The petition would have been signed by 500 people. Only I was in the hospital as a result of this decision or
50 people
staff
is a great,
recommendation because
it's a great
my life
accomplishment
cannot
still.
go ahead with this.
That's fine. Thank you. We appreciate that. We understand that this is your home and it is something that is of
This
tremendous
is my home.
value
This is
to
where
you.
my children were born. My child is an Olympian in
Absolutely.
training, might get injury, might have to be nursed at home, needs sunlight.
Okay.
The entire sunlight cannot be cut off. And I know that this addition, if it has to be built, can be built differently to take our needs into consideration, because I was never consulted. I was never asked.
Okay.
I was never considered as a human being.
Thank
never
you.
considered as a family. Just the opposite.
Okay, thank you. I invite you to sit down, and I will hear the rest of the applicants, neighbors, I mean. Who else would like to speak to the application? Has everyone had a chance to speak? Everyone who had their hand up? Okay. Mr. Bateman, you have a lot of questions and concerns to answer to from the neighbors. This is your time to do so.
The latest one, the one that talks about intrusion into the space. There's clearly no windows on the side. There's clearly no new intrusion into the neighbor's property. I've taken this picture just today. Shows that the house is clearly a two-story house. Plenty of light coming in. The house is not directly is not located directly to the south of the property. It's actually on the angle, at a 45-degree angle. This was taken exactly from the north side. So this is exactly where the sun is coming in. So in the morning, yes, there is some impact, but it's probably 2 feet extra in the mornings only, and only during cold months. In the summertime, there's absolutely no. This is a typical summertime photo. You can see there's absolutely no shade coming into the property. So I don't know. If a house was located to the south, yes, I could understand that. The drawings that were shown just previously are ridiculous. They're showing that this house is throwing an enormous shade of 1 kilometer, which is absurd. It's actually a 2-story house with a finished attic. It's not a 3-story house. It's not anything monstrous. There was also a concern before about the fact that somebody was told to build something at 23 lot coverage, 23% lot coverage, or 23.5. I can understand why that was done, because this is a new house, and I can understand when you're having a new house, you can definitely manipulate everything in the house to make it work with even that coverage. We don't have that luxury. We have absolutely no possibility to manipulate anything at the front, at the side of a house. The only area that we're told that we can do any kind of an addition is in the back. And we're doing a very, very small addition. The actual addition is projecting only 1.7 meters beyond where it was. And not only that, we're actually moving it away from a neighbor's property. The addition is actually not exactly where it's going, where the corner of the existing building is. So actually, if anything, we're not going to be having, anything that's beyond what is now. As I said, this is the existing corner of a back bump out now. We're actually pushing it back 2 feet, and most of the addition is actually everything that's going on is already existing condition. We're not really impacting anybody in some kind of a negative way or reducing somebody's privacy or anything like this. This is a very, very, very small one-room addition to the bedroom, because most of the bedrooms in this house are just basically closets. So there's no really way to put a normal modern master bedroom into this house. And the owner has a family. They want to have a normal thing that everybody else has. And in terms of calculating the average, I have a survey. So I didn't do it from an aerial photo. I have an exact survey provided by the surveyor who did the house for this. And I calculated the GFA to a decimal point. And it's actually 38% coverage, which is 20% more than what we're asking for. 67.8% relation of the floor area to the lot area. So we're way beyond that. We're much lower than that. But because this was built before the new bylaw was passed, they were allowed to get away with it. But because we have a house that is much smaller than any other house on the block, we're not allowed to modify this house at all. And we're basically stuck with a plan that's really not designed for anything modern. It's basically designed to have people gather around the fireplace, not really have any mini windows to the back at all. No need for kitchen, just kitchen is something in the corner. We're really trying to do something that's up to a normal modern standards, not something that was built 100 years ago that we cannot modify. And there's no other way to do it. And as I said, unfortunately, there is an attic in this space, and I can understand it's skewing the numbers, but the whole house, even with the addition, is only 2,800 square feet, which is not a big house at all, even with a big attic, which is about 400 square feet, which half of it is unusable. Yeah, there's a big attic. That's why the numbers are becoming, I showed a picture. The attic is finished, but it's actually, as I showed a picture before, the ceiling in most of the attic is very, very low. It's almost unusable. The owner was actually willing to cover it up if that's, but you know, we didn't. Less than, I would say less than, about 40% is it has an 8-foot ceiling, but majority of it is actually slope ceiling. You can see it's actually, I had a photo here. Let me see if I can find it again.
You should submit it to the Secretary Treasurer when you've showed it, because we need to have that on record.
Yeah, this is a picture of the attic that is finished. As I said, majority of it is actually just small dormer windows, and this is about 3 feet here. So you can see there's almost, this is about 8 feet at the very peak. So majority of the room cannot be used, but unfortunately we have to add it to the GFA, and that's what's skewing the number. Without it, we're talking about something like around 50-something.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Bateman at this time? Any items of clarification before we take this matter into committee?
Sure. You want this one?
I see none. Okay, thank you for your submission. We will now take this matter into committee. Who would like to start the ball rolling and have a discussion on this matter?
Madam Chair,
You'll start, Mr. Talowski.
I'll start. I may need
Go
a
ahead, sir.
second to gather my thoughts.
I think you need to put your, oh, it's on. You
It's
can
on.
turn mine off then. You can hand them over to. I'm sorry, I apologize. I've tried to be as patient as possible. We have taken this matter into committee. We are going to have a discussion now. And believe me, we are taking everything that you've said into consideration. You cannot. The matter has been closed, and as our procedural bylaw states, that it is now in committee session.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, this committee has been provided with a great deal of information. So if you'll indulge me, I'll try to address everything that we've heard here. I guess I'll restate what I stated to Mr. Nelson, that the character of this neighborhood is that most of the properties do not comply with the existing bylaw. It's been well documented numerous times in the past by staff that some of the provisions in this zone are not intended to be prescriptive, but were really put in place as a check and balance and to provide the opportunity for a hearing such as we're having tonight and to allow all sides to be heard. Madam Chair, we heard a lot tonight, but I only heard 2 items that relate to the impact of the proposal that's before us, and one is shadowing and the second is privacy. There was concern raised about process and consulting with the Heritage Committee, and I accept the staff's submission that the Heritage Committee has been consulted. I don't see the issue of whether you're legalizing noncompliance or not being relevant to the 4 tests that the committee has to address here, and whether we're legalizing something that exists or not, that the fact is it exists. And we heard a lot of discussion about concern about existing conditions. This committee can't address that, and as I've stated, this situation exists throughout this community. As members of the committee know, we are not here to focus on math. We're not here to listen to what a previous staff report said. We have these committee meetings, staff do reports on an application by application basis. There is no one size that fits all here. 10 feet could be significant in one aspect and not in another based on the context. And Madam Chair, submissions asking the committee to respect the bylaw without any explanation of how how varying the bylaw causes an impact it's not helpful to the committee. The committee is here to hear applications to amend the bylaw. So to suggest to the committee that it outright not amend the bylaw, as I said, it's not helpful. Madam Chair, we heard about privacy issues, and the committee, I noticed the applicant confirmed that the elevation facing the neighbor's house to the north has no windows. So I don't see how there is an impact to privacy by the addition of an extra approximately 5 to 6 feet of depth. And Madam Chair, I also don't understand how the addition of 5 or 6 feet of depth can result in what was stated as a doubling of the shadow effect on the adjacent property. And I think what we're facing here, Madam Chair, is we have a legal non-compliant use. It's a lot that is the least overbuilt of all the adjacent lots based on the overhead drawings that were shown. The addition in question, it's a 2-story addition. Even if it's considered a 3-story house, this is not a 3-story addition. It's in the center of the property. It's not right up against any property lines. This house would appear to be more similar characteristics in its design with or without the addition than the adjacent property does. And with that, Madam Chair, I understand there's been a lot of opposition, but I've not personally heard opposition that sways me that there is a undesirable impact of this addition. So, Madam Chair, I am going to move that this application be approved as applied for. I believe it does meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act, and I would make that condition subject to that the development proceed in general accordance with the drawings that were submitted to the committee dated February 28th, I believe, and that a building permit would have to issue within 2 years.
Thank you, Mr. Talowski. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Mr. Hardcastle, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have a whole lot to add. Mr. Talowski has covered over a lot of the points very articulately, so I won't tread upon the same ground. I believe that any efforts that are available to mitigate impacts have been undertaken with respect to the design of the addition in terms of the location of windows and pulling it away from the property line. I find that to be particularly compelling in terms of evaluating the impacts of the application. I also find the staff report and a brief analysis of the context of the neighborhood to be compelling as well in supporting Mr. Tulowski's point with respect to the character of this neighborhood. So I will be supporting the motion on the floor, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there any further discussion on this matter? I see none. Okay, the motion before us is to approve the application as submitted with the set conditions. All those in support? Okay, all those in opposition? Okay, your application has been approved. The next item on our agenda is CAV 037 of 146 Gloucester Avenue. Good evening.
My name is Graham. I'm the agent for the homeowner. I'm the employee of Provincial.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your last name. Graham.
Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Who is here for application CAV 037 of 146 Gloucester Avenue? Okay, you're in support, you're part of the application, okay. Go ahead, Mr. Graham. I know this is a one-story addition and you have several letters of support on hand. I believe 10 were submitted.
Yes.
Do you have anything further to add to the application?
No, other than I believe it meets the criteria of being a minor variance. They're minimal. And Jeffrey want to upgrade their properties as built in 1947, just to make it more up to today's standard of living. That's it. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Okay. Are there any questions or items of clarification of Mr. Graham at this time? I see none. If you're satisfied and you're familiar with you already stated that you're in confirmation of the staff's report and
Yes.
conditions,
Yes.
then we can take this matter into committee.
Sorry?
We can take this matter into committee now if
Yes.
you're satisfied.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this matter is now in committee. Who would like to move the motion? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken my site visit and reviewed the materials in addition to the staff report, which I found particularly helpful in evaluating this application, I'm satisfied that the requested variances conform to the four tests of the Act. I'll put forward a motion of approval. That approval would be subject to the two standard conditions, the first being that the addition be built in general accordance with the site plan and elevation drawings dated February 22nd, 2019, and the second being that the approval would expire within 2 years of the date of the decision if a permit has not been issued. I would note that there was a petition submitted in support of the application with I believe it's 10 signatures in support. I would note that for the record.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay. Application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item on our agenda is CAV 039 of 2019 at 1255 Lakeshore Road, East.
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair.
Good evening, Mr. Altrud. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you.
Just let me canvass the room. Who is here for CAV 039 of 2019 at 1255 Lakeshore Road East? Are you in opposition or in support? You're the applicants?
The applicants, yes.
Okay, I love it when everyone has just put their hands up.
I should have informed them, don't put your hand up, yes.
No, it's fine. Okay, so is there anyone here in opposition other than the applicants?
Yes, just myself.
No, okay. Very well, go ahead, Mr. Altrud. We've done our site visits. We're familiar with your application. This is a proposed new construction, a new home.
Yes, and I'd just like to begin. I do have a package of revised plans.
Okay.
That I mentioned to the Secretary Treasurer that I was going to bring forth today.
Very well.
And there has been a minor revision on the plans to deal with the Conservation Authority comments. Thank you, Jasmine.
I hope it's not making a lot of changes to your variances.
Nope, there is no changes to the variances. happy to advise of that. Maybe I can just describe to the committee members why we did this very minor change.
Okay.
And I apologize for the crudeness of this particular sketch, but essentially there is a floodplain line. And as the committee members know, this is just to start off, this is an existing house that is being replaced with additions. Essentially, and I'll get into it in a moment, but basically it's a existing condition for the large part. There is a floodplain approximately in this area. The setback as part of the original package was a 5-meter setback. If we were to push what is this area, it's a 1-story, essentially a basement with a deck on top of it. If we were to push it to 7.5 meters, it is outside of the regulation area. So as a result, there's no issue pertaining to the setback to the floodplain. We're still going to be dealing with Conservation Authority. We're actually meeting next week. It's more or less just a site inspection just to have a look, but it's my feeling at this point that by moving it to 7.5 meters, there is no issue pertaining to the Conservation Authority. Okay. So as a result, we'd like to move forward tonight. So as I pointed out, the variances that we've applied for have not changed. And I'll maybe just go through quickly. I know the planning's in support. There's no one in opposition, but this is a bit of a complicated application.
Yes.
And I'm sure the committee members have some questions. So I think it's best I just go through the variances very quickly and describe what we're asking for. There's quite a set of plans here. Just quickly, this is the first plan. It just shows the existing conditions of the house as it exists. And it's clearly showing that there has been a house. I believe it's been there for 70 years or so. I'm not sure the exact date of construction, but it's more or less in the area that the new house is being constructed. And I've indicated just here, sorry, let me just actually start with a different plan that clearly shows the intent of the addition. This is plan A102. I've indicated here in yellow, essentially, it's a little difficult to see what the boundaries are of the existing house. Yeah, and I'm actually flipping to page A13. I've outlined this as well in the larger elevation. The yellow line represents the existing house, including the existing garage, and basically the outline of this area is basically the confines of the new house. This is inclusive of the change that we made in the 1-story, more or less, basement addition that has a deck on top of it that we have moved to a 7.5 meter setback. So I just wanted to make sure that the committee can see clearly that this is the existing, and then the parameters of the new house are basically within the confines of what is here. This portion of the house that I'm indicating with my pen is actually going to be retained as far as the basement and the basis of the house. This portion is being demolished in favor of this wing. And then, of course, there's a living room addition right here. And then the 1-story basement, it's essentially with a deck above. And once again, the garage stays. So just as far as the context of the property is concerned, this is a 4-acre property fronting on the lakeshore. And the reason that we're going forth with this application essentially is, as it exists and has existed for years, the access has been through a right-of-way on the very east side of the property that has existed to give right-of-way to my client's house at 1255, as well as the house immediately north to it. So if the committee has been by the house, you'll see that there's an existing garage with a 2-door garage here that has access to the right-of-way. There is no other access other than what they're building right now that goes through the lower valley area, the landscape area. There has been a bridge that has been under construction now for approximately 3 months. It took us approximately 4 years to obtain the Conservation Halton approval for it. So it was quite a long process. The intent was to be able to have a driveway that does give the Thompsons access to the house. And as well, they do want to keep the right-of-way and have a 2-door garage still maintained where the existing garage is, right here. So maybe I can just go through the variances quickly. We're asking for 8 variances for this particular house. I've itemized them on the handouts that I've given you, and I've numbered them 1 through 8 in red and indicated in yellow what the actually variances are. So maybe I can just go through them quickly. The first one is a maximum driveway width of 24.86 meters. This is on the actual site plan drawing that I've submitted. I believe it's the third plan in your package. The driveway, as I said, comes off Lakeshore. It wraps over the bridge, comes through the valley, and comes into basically this area in yellow. So essentially the 24.86 meters is from here to here. The garage actually faces onto the driveway, so the condition is that they can drive into the garage. They have a bit of a back out, and as well the landscape plan shows there is a more or less it's a walkway condition here, but it's basically at the same level as the remainder of the driveway, the asphalt portion of the driveway. So as far as zoning is concerned, we must calculate it from here to here. But based, of course, on a 4-acre property, it's a rather modest. It's really just by definition what the actual width is of the driveway here. So that's the first variance. The second variance is pertaining to the maximum total floor area of the detached private garage, being 78 square meters. This is number 2. This is the variance. It's more or less the exact same footprint that exists with the existing house, with the detached garage. Only difference is the doors for this garage right now are basically going into this courtyard. The doors are being changed to basically go face the right-of-way. But the actual building and structure itself remains the same size. That brings us to variance number 3 with respect to the interior side lot line private garage with the driveway setback. We are requesting 5.12 meters, which essentially is existing, whereas, of course, the bylaw is requiring 7 meters. So once again, this is an existing condition other than, we are, as I said, having the garage doors actually face onto the right-of-way. Number 4, bring to your attention to drawing A103. So it's this particular drawing. This variance is for the dwelling depth. In this instance, we're asking for 38.3 meters, whereas the bylaw requirement is 20 meters. Once again, I showed you the positioning of the house as it pertains to the size of the lot and the positioning of the existing house, essentially. I've indicated in a red line right here that this is the 38.3 meters. It's from the front face of the basement with the deck to the back face of the house that basically is almost in the same line as the existing. This is the front face of the house as it exists today. It's almost in the same line at the back. So the depth is larger, of course, but based on the size of the lot, and it's my feeling that it certainly is minor as well. A number of years ago, we did obtain the variances for the house next door that was on a particularly odd lot as well. It's a very narrow lot, so we had to get a variance for depth as well for that lot. I think the depth variance was actually larger in that instance. The next variance being minimum lot front yard. I'll deal with the front yard and the maximum very quickly. It's on drawing A102. Based on the size of the lot, it's basically the point to the garage in this instance. The bylaw requirement, of course, is the existing house minus 1 meter. So the requirement is at this point. We're requesting the front yard setback of 116.18. The same thing is true with the maximum front yard. It's 5.5 meters back from the existing, which is this red line right here. So we are requesting basically the maximum front yard of 131.8, whereas, of course, the bylaw requirement is 121.68. I don't need to tell the committee that this is a very unusual circumstance pertaining to the distance and the fact that it's not a usual subdivision lot. So once again, in my opinion, there's no issues with this particular variance. The height variance, which is number 7, I've indicated drawings A300 to 08 are the elevation drawings at the back of your package. I'll just put one in particular on. We're asking for a 9.15 meter height, whereas the bylaw is 9 meters. We are just over the height by a smidgen, about 0.15 meters. And sorry. This gives a good perspective of the height, essentially. It's just the peaks that are subject to the variance. The existing drawings are in your package as well if the committee wants to have a look at them. It's essentially the drawings AX 11, for instance, and the existing house is slightly under the 9-meter requirement. The last variance is the maximum height of 4.99 for the accessory building. This is for the existing garage. This is the westerly elevation. This is the existing garage, basically right in behind. It's basically the same design, same roof peak and so forth, but essentially it's more or less 4.99 meters existing. We're asking for the same today. So all in all, the variances I feel are minor, of course, meets the 4 tests. Interesting situation with this lot. I know that one of the members was on site and saw the existing house. It's a beautiful lot, well landscaped. Of course, they do want to retain the ability to get the access through, and it certainly adds to the uniqueness of the lot, having the bridge access from Lakeshore. So I'll leave it at that. And if the committee has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Aldred. Are there any questions at this time or items of clarification? I see none. Okay. If you're satisfied with the conditions that staff have set and you're ready for us to take this matter to committee, we will do so.
Okay, thank you.
Very well. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Ms. Murray.
Madam Chair and Mr. Outright, thank you for your presentation. It was very helpful to take us step by step through the variances and visually see them. As you indicated, it's a very complicated request due to the nature of the property, so very much appreciated. And as I'm fairly new to the committee, also very much appreciated by myself. So having conducted my site visit and reviewed the applicant's written submission as well as the town's written staff report, which I note is in support of the application, I'm prepared to make a motion in support of the variances requested.
And the conditions?
Conditions, yes, apologies.
You can read them from here if you'd like.
Conditions will be that the dwelling and the garage be constructed in accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated February 27, 2019, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction, and in cases where a building permit is not required, that the proposed scope of the work has not been fully completed.
If I could just maybe suggest we deal with the revision number?
Yes, the revision number and the date on the application is
20,
the new
26th.
package.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
March 26, 2019.
Okay. I have 25th on A102. Which one would you? 20, oh, that's February the 25th. Sorry, am I reading it the wrong place?
Yeah, and up in the top right-hand corner is the revisions.
Oh, perfect, right here.
Is that the site plan?
It's right here, it's on the top.
No, it's just the site plan.
No, it's everything, right? It's all the plans.
It should be all the
of
plans,
them.
including the site grading plan, yes.
Yes, including the site plan.
Actually, the site grading plan may change pertaining to site alterations. Maybe it could just be the architectural plans. The site alterations permit is in, it may change, not the house, of course, but aspects to the actual site plan grading may change.
Okay.
So I'd suggest all plans except for the site grading plan.
Except for the site alteration. Okay. We've got it on record. Any discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay. The application has been approved. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
So the next item on our agenda is CAV 040 of 2019 at 271 Cornwall Road.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Martin. I'm here as the applicant with regard to 271 Cornwall Road.
Mr. Martin, good evening. I still need to canvass the room, although it is dwindling, but bear with me. Who is here for CAV 040 of 2019 at 271 Cornwall Road? Okay, I see none. This is an application for an entrance canopy and a heated patio.
Correct.
Addition. Yes? Did you put your hand up?
I'm here as an observer.
As an observer?
Yes.
So you do not want to speak to the committee?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you. I apologize if I missed you. All right. I lost my train of thought for a second.
Perhaps I could just start by saying that the zoning on the property is MTC. It's considered to be going to be demolished at some point in the future. It's the property where the Whole Foods is, and that entire stretch is considered all part of the same property. As part of the MTC zoning, they did envision and consider that as new tenants took over existing spaces, there might be modernization or small changes that would be required, and that's included in the zoning for MTC. So with this property, we're looking to add a patio. Because the zoning, new construction is frozen, any new construction has to require a variance, and a small entrance canopy is consistent with all of the other property buildings on the property. It's just there to protect the customers from slipping on the ice in the winter. It's 3 feet by approximately 15 feet over the entrance, and then the patio is substantially a concrete slab, 1,500 change square feet, slightly elevated from the existing grade with pergola structure, just for aesthetics and slight sun shading of the guests, and some patio heaters for use in the summer. The entrance and canopy, with regard to our submission, I showed pictures of other properties in Oakville and other beer town locations that have similar structures, and we're requesting your support of our application.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Are there any questions of Mr. Martin or items of clarification at this time? I see none. Mr. Martin, if you're satisfied with the conditions that staff have recommended, then we can take this matter into committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to move a motion? Mr. Flemington, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having conducted my site visit and having reviewed the applicant's written submission as well as the town's written report, which I do note is in support of the application, and also having taken into account the comments presented to us today by the applicant, as well as noting that there are no members from the public that were speaking in against the application, and there are no letters of opposition. I am prepared to move a motion that the application be approved as applied for, noting the two conditions, that the canopy, patio, and pergola be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated March 8, 2019, to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning Services, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? The application has been approved. Okay. Application CAV 041 of 2019 at 2245 Dunedin Road. Am I pronouncing this right?
Dunedin.
Dunedin? Dunedin. Thank you. Dunedin. Hello, Mr. Hello, Mr. Kieran. How are you?
I'm good. Good evening, Madam Chairperson and members of the committee. My name is Joris Kieran. I am the agent for the applicant.
Very well. Mr. Kieran, give me a moment, please. Who is here for application CAV 041 of 2019 at 2245 Dunedin Road? No one. Mr. Kieran, the floor is yours.
I'm here to answer any questions. I can do a presentation if the committee wants me to.
We've all done our site visits. It's a modest development of a two-story proposed construction with a slight increase in RFA. Are there any items of clarification or questions to Mr. Kieran at this time? I see none. Okay. We prepared to take this matter into committee.
Okay.
Mr. Talowski, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to be a lot more brief this time. Madam Chair, I'm satisfied that the design of this house mitigates any potential impact of the variance that's being requested. Before I find it meets the four tests of the Planning Act, I would move approval of the application, subject to development proceeding in general accordance with the drawings provided to the committee, and that a building permit issue within 2 years.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Talowski. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the last item of our agenda was deferred from February the 26th. It is CAV 025 of 2019 at 512 Pine Grove Road. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, madam.
Although you see that no one else is present, I still have to canvass the room according to our bylaws so that everyone can see that on the YouTube channel as we are live. Who is here for application CV 025 of 2019 at 512 Pine Grove Road? You are in? Applicants, thank you. We have no one in the audience as opposed. The floor is yours. I believe you're Mr. Singh?
Yes, Gurpreet Singh Chatwal. Actually, I'm here on behalf of my friend Harminder Chima.
Good evening. Okay, so this was deferred, and you've since had some improvements in your discussions with the town staff, and
so since then, I've had an opportunity to speak to the staff and try to understand all their recommendations. And we've incorporated all their recommendations and put them into the revised plans, which we submitted. So there were some of the things that they had recommended. I can just briefly go through that we changed. One, they had asked that we bring the house closer to the front yard, and we have done that. And I can just quickly show that here if we need to. So we've brought the house a little closer, and it's within the requirements where the greater than 50% of the front walls are now within the 7.74 to 13.24 requirement. And right here, this is 7.74, and that's 13.24, so more than 50% of the walls. The second recommendation they had was that we reduce the flat roof that was above the garage, and we've done that, and we've moved some of the bedrooms and the master bedroom, the ensuite, and the walk-in closet to do that. So I can just quickly kind of just show you. So this is the roof line. So this roof line has been shifted forward now. So there's less flat roof over the garage. And in order to do that, what we've done is we've moved pretty much all this half of the house forward. So the bedroom 4 has been moved forward, and the master bedroom and all that was moved forward in order to meet that comment. And the third thing we've done is there was a recommendation to reduce some of the sizes of the bedrooms. We've done that. So what we did is we came back with the revised drawings. We've definitely significantly removed the living and dining room. We've reduced the size of the family room, and then also the master bedroom and the walk-in closet. So we incorporated all that with the recommendations that we had.
Very well. Thank you for that clarification. It's always good when we see an application come back and have the support of the town and have heard the recommendations and have worked hard to maintain the character of the neighborhood. And we do have one letter of objection. I believe you've read it. It was part of the report that one neighbor just is objecting to the garage, and they feel that it's not minor, but they don't really speak to why they feel that way. I understand that the garage floor area is all internal and it's not visual from the streetscape, so there's no impact
That's right.
on the adjacent properties or the streetscape.
That's correct.
So that's a clarification in terms of that objection. If you're prepared for us to take this matter into committee and you're satisfied with the staff's comments and recommended conditions, then we can do so.
Please.
Okay. Who is ready to move a motion? Mr. Hardcastle, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think that I'd initially had some reservations with respect to this, and I think that some of the revisions that have been undertaken work towards reducing the perceived mass of the building, in particular, pulling the upper floor in and away and kind of breaking up the roof form a little bit. Really works well towards reducing that. And in terms of the garage area, as Madam Chair had noted, the garage variance is, it still appears from the street to be a two-car garage, so the additional area is internalized, and so I believe that staff have addressed it, and the form of the building addresses the concerns that have been identified by the written submission. So accordingly, I'll put forward a motion of approval, finding that the requested variances conform to the four tests of the Act, and that motion should be subject to the two standard conditions. Sorry, just bear with me. The first being that the dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated December 21st, 2018. And that the approval expires within 2 years of the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued. Noting again that there was a singular submission that I think has been adequately addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? The application has been approved. Thank you.
Very much.
We have minutes to confirm for the March 12th meeting. Who would like to confirm the minutes? Okay, Ms. Murray. Am I pronouncing the right?
Oh,
yeah. Okay. Confirms the minutes for March 12th. Motion for adjournment? Mr. Hardcastle. Never fails, always. We are adjourned at, I don't have a watch.
And there is a watch, 32, 8.
Okay, 8:32. Thank you.